Hey, what's up, everybody? Chicago Goonie here, bringing another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, it'll be strictly on the players. It goes on from my part one about Arsene Wenger. There'll be little tidbits of stuff about Arsene Wenger throughout this whole thing, obviously. But this one will be solely on the players. Um, you know, I'm the type of fan who usually blames the players before a manager or a head coach um, at certain times. The players are the ones who are on the pitch. They're the ones that are kicking the ball around. They're the ones that are scoring. They're the ones that are getting scored on. And usually I'm the type of fan that blames them first. But then it gets to a point to where you see them continuously making the same mistakes. You see them continuously getting played game after game, and then it goes to the manager after that. Because if a manager can't identify when a player is on a bad streak, that's on the manager. That's not really on the player. To where maybe a player needs, a game off, maybe a couple games off. Who knows? Maybe there's some disciplinary actions that need to be taken. Maybe a manager tells a certain player to, you better step your game up in training if you ever want to play again. And certain things like that need to happen, but of course at Arsenal Football Club they just don't seem like they happen, unfortunately. At least not as often as some of us would like. Arsene Wenger kind of takes the approach of, if they're having a bad run of form, that eventually they will get out of it. But eventually can be a month, 2 months, even an entire year, and that's too long. That's too long to have any type of faith in your players. But um, to get into the players, I mean, yeah, we have some great players, not enough of them. Um, you know, like I said in part one, we just do not have enough difference makers on the pitch to compete with the likes of Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona. Some of the top tier clubs. We just do not have enough difference makers that we can take the game to them at any point in time. To where you saw it in the Barcelona game, we basically parked the bus and pretty much kind of parade that Barcelona might have a hiccup or two and that we could score on it. We had a couple opportunities in that game. We didn't capitalize on it. And again, that comes back to, uh, you know, we have average to good players. Like I said, we have a few great players, but not enough of them. And some of these average players uh, need to get out of the club as soon as possible. I have a list of names that I would like to see gone after this season. Some of them are just because of age. Some of them are just because their time has passed. Um, and others, their time hasn't passed. Some of them are still young, but you just don't see any type of improvement from them. But to get on real quick with the guys who, it's pretty much a given why they should leave the club. I mean, Mikel Arteta, old, slow, doesn't really offer anything anymore. He's trying to get his coaching badges through Arsenal currently. That's what he's been basically doing this entire year. I think he's played maybe 3 or 4 games at most. I think this entire season, and in those games he was just again slow, bad. Um, if you want to keep him on as a squad player for the younger guys or something, or I don't know. But his time is definitely passed a long time ago. Yes, he's a great passer of the ball, but that's all he has. That's all he has left in the tank, and that's not good enough. That's not good enough for me to even put him on the bench. He should, if he's kept on, he should be a squad player, nothing more. He shouldn't be on the bench. He shouldn't be even near the pitch during any type of match days. He just does not offer anything, and he puts us in harm's way rather than helps us. So I'd like to see him gone. Matthew Flamini, kind of same deal. He's getting older. He's getting past it. Anytime he comes onto the pitch, I cringe. I say why. I say why is he starting over this player or that player? Obviously because of experience in terms of Arsene Wenger. He has experience and blah blah blah, this and that. Yeah, he had his day in the sun against the Scum on the league cup game where he scored 2 goals. That was his day in the sun. That was his highlight of his season, maybe even of his career, and that's it. You know, he's just makes really poor decisions on the pitch, whether it's making a poor challenge, giving a penalty away, giving stupid fouls away, and it's just not there. You know, between Arteta and Flamini, why are they on the roster when someone else can come in that's younger, maybe better, someone that we can grow within the club? And I'm kind of a firm believer in having veterans in the club or whatever. But that's more of an American thing, I think, than in baseball or basketball. But in terms of football, you really don't need it. Sometimes there's that mainstay at the club, who's been with the club for 8 to 10 years. But our longest serving member is Theo Walcott, and that guy is as far from a leader as possible. Um, yeah, he comes out and says he loves Arsenal, but at the same time, you have to question if he really does, just by his play on the pitch. But um, in terms of football, I don't think football in this modern era really needs it. Really needs that old veteran to go to possibly. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. Maybe maybe a club needs that kind of older veteran that's in it, is 32, 33, 34 years old that, younger players can go to and say, how do I be a professional? How do I act? And, how do I, conduct an interview? And what do I say? What do I don't say? Maybe that's good for the club. Maybe that's good for some of the younger players, but at the same time, it's a roster spot that should be open, that should be not vacant. It shouldn't be taken up by an older player that can't offer us anything. The third name, unfortunately, is Thomas Rosicky. I have nothing bad to say about him at all. Anytime that he's been healthy and playing for Arsenal, he gave it 100% every single time on the pitch. He was supposed to leave after last season. Arsenal and Arsene Wenger picked up his option, and they forced him to stay at the club, which was just so wrong on so many levels to do to a Thomas Rosicky who, since he came to the club, gave everything that he had for the club, stayed with the club, and just bled Arsenal red throughout his career. And for not to give him his wish, supposedly he had a contract already set up with West Ham. He was going to leave Arsenal after last season, go to West Ham, have like a 1 year contract, I believe, and then go back home to the Czech Republic to finish out his career. Um, who knows? He maybe, excuse me, he maybe only has maybe 2, maybe 3 years left in him that he can actually play some decent football, maybe enjoy his football, enjoy the last moments of his career. And Arsenal kind of took that away from him. Arsene took that away from him. Arsene made the excuse that we still need you here, we still need your leadership, blah blah blah. But at the same time, it was just a wrong thing to do. But unfortunately, after this year, I know it's kind of a fact that he's going to leave because he's not going to renew another contract. He's not going to do a contract extension, and rightfully so. Um, Czech forced his way to Arsenal. Roman Abramovich gave him his wish. He said, time served. You gave us some of the best years of your career, and you deserve this. Where Arsene Wenger did the opposite and said, nope, we're going to pick up your option and you're going to stay here. Forcing him to stay, which is ridiculous to a player like Thomas Rosicky. Like I said, gave everything that he had to Arsenal Football Club, And even through injury, he still is. He still cares. He still, he was part of the uh, four-player, um, and three of these players I'm going to be talking about too that called into the meeting. It was Thomas Rosicky, Miguel Arteta, Per Mertesacker, and Czech. All called the player only meeting to hash out, whatever they're talking about. I'm going to get into that a little bit um, later on after I talk about the players, but those three are kind of givens just because of their age, just because of can't really offer anything at this stage. And Thomas Ritchie, you can just he's there's nothing bad I can say about him. So, um, but other than that, I'm going to get into the players who I really want to talk about, and I just um, I'm just sick of all these players being at Arsenal Football Club and um, not performing like they should be. And some of you might disagree with me, especially at this first one. The first one is the Ox. The first thing I would say, the first thing I would question anyone about the Ox is in the last 4 years, what has the Ox improved on? Where is the improvement from the Ox from the last 4 seasons? And honestly, you can't answer the question because there is no improvement. I am, I all I hear, on Reddit the other day, some guy made a thread about the Ox and said, "Why is he here with club? You know, I don't see any improvement. Why is he here?" And he got slated. The OP who made that thread just got slated by everyone, and Reddit says, "You're mad, you're crazy, go fuck off," and all this other shit. And he was dead on. He was dead on his entire assessment of the Ox. He hasn't improved in 4 seasons. What are the stronger attributes of the Ox? He's good on the ball. He can dribble. He has power. And he has a work rate. That's about it. That's the Ox. I'm going to give you an example of who the Ox is. He's another English player who was deemed the next great winger at Manchester United when they bought him from Crystal Palace. Wilfried Zaha. Wilfried Zaha is a guy who dribbles, takes on defenders, but when he's done with his bag of tricks, he has no idea what to do with the ball. He doesn't know if he should pass, cross, shoot, pass it back to one of his teammates to reset. He has no idea what to do with the ball, and the Ox is the same exact way. The Ox has a lot of bag of tricks. He dribbles well. He can get around defenders. He he doesn't lose much pace when he's on the ball, to where a lot of other players lose pace when they're on the ball dribbling. One guy is Theo Walcott. He just loses all of his pace when he starts dribbling the ball because he doesn't know how to. But with the Ox, he doesn't lose that much pace when he dribbles on the ball. But when he's out of his bag of tricks, he has no idea what to do with the ball. There's been so many occasions over the last 2 seasons alone that sometimes it's only him and the goalkeeper, and he still doesn't know what to do with the ball. A couple instances this season. One was straightforward. Was Liverpool at the Emirates. He was 1-on-1 right in front of the goalkeeper, and what does he do? He holds up and he tries to cross the ball over when he should have just took the shot. He doesn't have the intelligence of a footballer. He doesn't know what to do. Like I said, he'll just take on defenders, dribble past them, and then he'll just have a complete brain fart because he doesn't know what to do with the ball. He's been doing this for 4 seasons straight. Another thing, he's not that great of a passer of the ball. He's a terrible finisher. I think in his Premier League career, I think he has only about 5 or 7 goals in 4 seasons. He only has 5 to 7 goals in 4 seasons. For me, I want my winner to score anywhere from 12 to 15 goals a season and assist 10 to 12 and get 10 to 12 assists every single season. That's what a winger should do. And I'm talking about through all competitions, not just Premier League. It would be great if that was just Premier League because, we would be unstoppable then. But as far as a winger, you should be able to score goals, you should be able to finish, you should be able to assist your teammates. But he can't do that because he doesn't have the intelligence, he doesn't have the awareness around him. Like I said, he pulls out his bag of tricks, he dribbles around, but then he just loses it. He loses all concentration. He gave an interview this season, which is funny. I mean, this is when I lost it from him completely. Is that he said he feels more comfortable in the midfield. Okay, one, he can't pass the ball. Everybody can pass the ball about 5 yards. That's fine. Anybody can do that. Even defenders can do that. But when you are a central midfielder, you need to be able to pass it with accuracy beyond 5 yards. He can't do that. He can't connect on those long balls. He has the work rate to go box to box. But two things that you need to be a central midfielder and to be a good one and to play for one of the biggest clubs in the world is be able to retain possession, which sometimes he can't. Most of the time he can't, to be honest with you. And to be able to pass the ball. He can't do that. So why is he saying that he feels more comfortable as a midfielder when he can't do any of those things? So like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm a type of fan that blames the player first and then the manager. Okay. For the last 4 seasons, he hasn't improved a single bit. Not on finishing, not on passing, not on pitch intelligence, nothing. So then I asked myself, okay, what is he doing during training sessions? Is he working with the coaches? Are the coaches working with him? Maybe for the first, couple seasons, the 11, 12, 12, 13 season, I'm sitting there, it's like, okay, maybe, maybe they're not paying that much attention to him on the training ground because he's young. But that doesn't make any sense. And then, 13, 14 happens, 15, 16 happens, and now it gets to the point to where it's not the coaching anymore. It's the player, it's himself. Is the Ox staying after training and working on finishing? Is he scattering balls all over the 18-yard box and just knocking them into the net for 30 minutes at a time? Is he working on passing? Is he working on finishing? Is he working on set pieces? Because like I said, he has not progressed at all in 4 seasons. 4 seasons ago, you thought, God, there's potential on this kid. He has so much power. He's good on the ball. He can dribble past people. But man, once he works on his finishing, once he works on his passing, once he works on his in-game intelligence, oh man, the kid's going to be lightning. And it hasn't happened. I think he's 22 years old now, and we're still using the same excuse. Every single year, we say this is going to be Ox's breakout year. This is going to be his year. We've said that for 3 years straight now. And it hasn't happened yet. I'm sorry, but it's never going to happen. He's to the point now, he's at the age now to where you can't even say, oh God, he has so much great potential. Because in football terms, he only has maybe 8 more years left before he starts to decrease as a player. So why is he with the club anymore? I say you sell him off in the summertime when you still can use that quote unquote potential tag and sell him off for about 25 million. And another thing about the Ox, you can guarantee he's going to be hurt for at least 2 months of the season. He's averaged that for the last 3 seasons. 2 months of injury time. In the 13-14 season, he was out for a lot longer than that. He was out for, I believe, almost 3.5 months. Last year, he was out for a little bit more than 2 months, and then this year he's going to be out for almost the rest of the season. He's injury prone already. That's that's the motto right now. That's the motto of Arsenal Football Club. Injured player after injured player, injury prone. That's next to every single one of their names almost is injury prone. And if he hasn't progressed, especially by this time, he should be lightning right now. He should have surpassed, you know, uh, he should have surpassed Theo Walcott by now. He should have surpassed even, Joel Campbell, who's only been with the club for almost 2 years now. And Joel Campbell, in my opinion, is better than the Ox. He gives more to the game. He's better. He's better at passing. He can finish the ball better. His intelligence in the game is better. They have about the same pace. They have about the same body. But yet Arsene Wenger keeps on trucking him out there. I do not get it. But again, people just keep on using that potential tag. There's a point in the time where you have to cut the strain on a player. You have to really be realistic and say, this player is never going to get it, because he shouldn't be terrible still at finishing. He shouldn't be still terrible at passing the ball. Because obviously, at this stage, it's the player, not the coaching staff. So why is he with the club? Why are we hanging on to him? Because maybe one day the light switch will go off? People are using what happened to Aaron Ramsey in the 13 and 14 season, to where the light switch finally went off or went on. Well, now it's off again. I mean, let's be honest. But how long are we going to wait? How long is the coaching staff going to continuously work with this guy and not get better? So why are we hanging on to him? Get rid of him now so that he can we can get something from him. Because in my opinion, the Ox is a mid-table player. He belongs at Stoke. Maybe Everton is the best club possible that he can go to, in my opinion. He is not a top tier, not a big club player. Because I think, in my opinion, he is the same as Frimpong without the personality. Frimpong loved to go around and say, I'm an Arsenal player. And he lived it up and he lived it up until Arsenal finally got rid of him. And the day he got rid of him, he made a tweet. I remember it was fucking hilarious, but he made a tweet saying, "What am I gonna do? I can't tell anybody that I'm an Arsenal player anymore. How am I gonna get girls?" I think the same thing with the Ox. And for some reason, he doesn't output anything, and he still gets a new contract. He still gets more money. It doesn't make any sense. At some point in time, you have to cut the strain and just let a player go. I know people are gonna say, "Well, there's a rumor that Pep Guardiola wants him at Man City because of what he saw from him against Bayern Munich." That's one game, dude. Wait till Pep Guardiola sees all the other games that he played in, and watch how terrible his finishing is. Watch how terrible his passing is. Watch how terrible his in-game intelligence is. So that's one player that I would just get out of the club as soon as possible, because we need to upgrade that position. The winger position needs an upgrade, a massive upgrade. The next player I'm going to talk about is Olivier Giroud. Not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. I've defended him over all last season. I even defended him after Thierry Henry came out with his gem of a quote that's saying that Arsenal will never win the league with Olivier Giroud as a striker. Of course, Thierry Henry came out later and said that was taken out of context. That's saying Olivier Giroud needs help. He needs more than just one striker, and he can't do it all on his own. Okay, that sounds all well and good after the fact. He didn't say that until what, maybe 1 or 2 months after the fact he said that. He didn't come out the next day and say, well, it was taken out of context and this is what I really meant. No, I think he really meant that. You watch like Arsenal Fan TV, you watch Claude. That guy has given Olivier Giroud probably the most stick out of any like Arsenal fan on that channel. And he's been right the entire time. I've tried to defend him time and time again. I've tried to, give him his props. But I'm through with it. This year has been, I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand watching him as our lead striker because he's a pass first striker. He's not a shoot first striker like every other striker is in the world. He's a pass first striker. Case in point, against Barcelona, Marciano gave him a 3 or 4 yard cushion that all that Olivier Giroud had to do was pick up his head, look at what Barcelona was giving him, put it on his left foot, and slingshot it into the top left corner. That's all he had to do. And it would have been a goal for Arsenal. What's he do? He passes it right away. Didn't even think twice about it. Didn't even pick up his head and look what was in front of him. Just passed it. You know why he has a high conversion rate? Because he passes the ball all the time. He doesn't take shots. He doesn't shoot. Go on YouTube and look at highlights of Olivier Giroud since he's been with Arsenal. There's several videos of highlights with him scoring goals for Arsenal and the French national team. Now you'll see very few highlights of him actually taking his left foot and just slamming it on net. And some of his goals, it's not like his left foot sucks. It's great, actually. If you see some of those goals that he's actually scored from 18 yards, 20 yards out, they're amazing. But yet, there's so very few of them. Why? I have no idea. Now, his right foot sucks, but his left foot is pretty amazing, actually. But yet, he doesn't use it. He's a striker that needs service, and what he wants to do is just have tap-ins and headers. That's basically it. That's his game. And for whatever reason, he doesn't want to use his left foot. And like I said, he has a high conversion rate because he hardly ever fucking shoots. You look at some of the great strikers that we've had over the years. RVP, Adebayor, Thierry Henry, Anelka, Wiltor, Dennis Bergkamp, Ian Wright. All those guys would take one touch and just slam it in on net, no matter where they were. If they had an angle, if they could create even a half a yard of space for themselves, they would slam it in on net. Olivier Giroud is the complete opposite. He'd rather pass the fucking ball. There's been so many times that Ozil, Ramsey, Santi, Jack, Alexis Sanchez, Theo Walcott, the Ox, you name any of our midfielders, wingers, any one of them, Thomas Rosicky, any one of them, would set him up at the top of the box, and all he had to do was take one touch to his left and slam it in on net. There's been so many instances over the last 4 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, whatever, that you see that. And another thing, he has a disappearing act for the last, since he's been here, kind of. His first season wasn't that great. He only had 7 Premier League goals, and then he had 10 Champions League goals. So he had 17 goals total in the season. His second season, 13-14 season, uh, you know, not his fault, but at the same time, Arsene Wenger ran him into the ground. We didn't have any backups. He basically played almost the entire season as striker. A lot of games, a lot of minutes, but again, he did a disappearing act around February, March. Didn't score any goals, stopped scoring goals. Last year was the same damn thing. He came back from injury, he was on a tear, and then all of a sudden he got tired and he stopped scoring. This year, same damn thing. 11 straight games without a goal. Give me even the most average or quality striker out there. They do not go 11 games without a goal. Especially when you play for a club like Arsenal, when you have an attack like Arsenal, when you have a guy like Mesut Ozil dealing you the ball. You do not go 11 straight games, and you do not keep playing if you can't fucking score. Here's a stat for you. I kind of teased it. Maybe everybody knows it because it's been splashing around for about the last week and a half. And I don't know if the number has changed. It might have changed maybe by one or two since the Tottenham game. But in the Premier League season this year, Arsenal Football Club has missed 57 big chances. 57 of them. Now there's a difference between big chances and creative chances. Big chances are actually goal scoring opportunities. Creative chances are uh, kind of like a hockey assist or something. It's creating it's the start of the creation of a possible goal scoring opportunity to where a big opportunity a big a big opportunity is when you can actually score. Arsenal has missed 57 of them this season. And some of the names that have missed those big goals: Olivier Giroud, Aaron Ramsey, Theo Walcott, and even Alexis Sanchez is up on there too. That's our front line. Olivier Giroud and Theo Walcott, those are our two strikers. Let's hopefully not anymore because Danny Welbeck is finally back. And hopefully he gets more time. And think about that for a second. 57 big chances. What's the one thing we can't do this season? To score. Imagine if we just scored half of those goals. We'd be at top of the table right now. That means our front line can't finish. Alexis Sanchez has proved that he can finish. He scored 26 goals last season. He went on a tear. We know he can finish the ball. But as far as Olivier Giroud, Theo Walcott, even Aaron Ramsey this season has been terrible at finishing the ball. We also have the most, or I think we're tied, but I think we have the most shots that have hit the woodwork this season as well. And to take it back to Mesut Ozil too, he has 18 assists currently in the Premier League season. Imagine if he had 10 of those big chances as an assist maker. He would have 28 assists right now if they could convert those opportunities. That is a shocking number. And that's why we're not at the top of the table. We just do not have the finishers on Arsenal Football Club currently. Like I said, we need more difference makers. And what I mean by difference makers is that guys who can put it in the back of the net consistently. Guys who will act selfish sometimes and put a shot on net. Because we don't have that. We don't have the finishers. And that's what we're struggling with the most right now. And Olivier Giroud is front and center. We need better. We need a world-class striker. People have been screaming for that since RVP left, and we still have not replaced him. And it's sad. And it's sad because we have so much money in the bank that we cannot replace him with ease. We should be able to. We should be able to find someone better who can finish better, who can work with Mesut Ozil, because we're wasting his talent right now. We really are. And there's times in games where Olivier Giroud he's just like a statue, almost useless, you know. And like I said, he'll get a ball from any one of our midfielders at the top of the box and he'll pass it right away. He'll pass it instantly instead of taking a touch and slamming it on net. That's not good enough. Like I said, RVP, any of our old strikers would do the complete opposite of what he did. Because you know what? He gets paid to score goals, not to pass the fucking ball. We already have a number 10. We already have midfielders. But he just doesn't do enough of it. So, given his age, given his, we can maybe, if he has like a decent Euros, that maybe some French club will come around and give us 20 million for him. Maybe they'll be desperate enough saying, well, he's a French international. He's on the French national team. He played in the World Cup. He played in Euros. Let's bring him back to France and celebrate him. So this is the time now to go out there and sell him and get something from him. We got him for cheap. You know, he loves playing for Arsenal. I'm not going to take that away from him. There's times where he busts his ass and does a lot of extra things, but at the same time, he doesn't give us what we need the most, and that's goals. And like I said, he goes on those dry spells that just last forever. And again, it's on the manager to keep on throwing him in the game when it's pretty obvious Olivier Giroud is the type of striker who needs time off, who needs a game, even two, off, to not play at all. He's not the paciest guy, in the world, obviously. That's another thing. I can make the example of, I can't remember if I talked about this, but, you know, Mesut Ozil needs a guy who's pacey, who can run, who can take those through balls. Someone like a Danny Welbeck or a Kareem Benzema or whatever. Olivier Giroud is just not that. They say he's a great header of the ball, but I don't see that either. Because a lot of his headers go over the bar almost every single time. He can't control it, but yet he's a great header of the ball. Maybe they mean from goal kicks and everything that he can control it a lot. But as far as goal scoring opportunities, I think he has 5 goals in the Premier League with his head. I think it's like tied for first or second or something like that. But again, if you're like 6'3", 6'4", you should be having more than that. Do we blame our fullbacks for not whipping it in? Do we, can't blame Mesut Ozil because that dude has set him up time and time again and he's fluffed every opportunity. There's, the Monaco game too was, front and center. He had 4 silver platter fucking opportunities and he fluffed them all. We need a more clinical striker up top. Someone who can finish. And he's just not that guy. Third guy I'm going to talk about is Aaron Ramsey. I have no fucking... I can't wrap my head around this one. I don't know what happened to him. Okay. The 12 and 13 season was probably one of his worst years as a professional footballer. He got slated every single game by the fans. I wasn't one of them. I had my little complaints. There are certain times in games where he just gave the ball away. Uh, you know, Bad passes, too much time on the ball, bad decision making. Um, but the one thing that stood out of why I didn't slate him like all the other fans did was because he hustled and he defended during that season. When he made a mistake, you know, again, he's not the fastest player in the world, but he would run as fast as he could back to help out defensively. But now he doesn't even do that. But then in the 13 14 season, all of a sudden, like I said, the light switch turned on, and he just had that one season of just like he could do no wrong. And he didn't do much wrong in the 13 14 season. I mean, he was scoring goals for fun. His passing was on point for most of the part. His positioning was good. He could, go unmarked almost every single time into the box and just score and score and score. It was an amazing year. It was his year. Scored the game winner in the FA Cup final to give us our first trophy in 9 years. Like I said, he could do no wrong. People were calling him a world class CM after that season, and I was like, no way. To be a world class player, in my opinion, you need to string together at least 3 straight years of great football to be deemed world class, especially at the midfielder position, because there are so many of them in the world. But people were trying to call him world class, and that's kind of a joke. I mean, come on. But then the 14-15 season started, and it seemed like he started where he left off. But then he dealt with a couple injuries to his hamstring. I think he was out for 4 weeks at one point, and then he came back for 2 weeks, and then he got injured again, and he was out for 6 weeks. And then the second half of the season started, and then it just went all to shit. And then this season in particular, it looks more like the 12 and 13 season rather than the 13-14 season. I mean, he's making bad decisions again. He's taking too much time on the ball again. He's terrible at passing. He's trying to almost be like Ozil and trying to make that, you know, that hairline thread pass that he can't make. He's scoring the odd goal here or there. He only has 5 Premier League goals this season. He's not hustling. Whenever he gives the ball back, he's not hustling back. He's not defending. He's leaving Coughlin out in an island by himself to cover 60 yards of pitch all by himself. Why? Because for some reason, Aaron Ramsey's inside the fucking 18-yard box, almost inside the 6-yard box, doing what? And all of a sudden, Coughlin's back there by himself, and all hell breaks loose. We get caught on the counter. We get caught on the counter more times when Aaron Ramsey is at the CM position than when Santi Cazorla was at the CM position. Now, last year, even this season, they tried him at the right wing position. They were playing him out of position. And I kept on calling for it. We need to play him at the CM position. I was like, dead wrong, obviously, because I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the fuck happened between the second half of last year and all this season. I just do not know what the fuck happened to him. But if a player regresses that much, his positioning is awful too. In the 13-14 season, his positioning, his awareness, his intelligence was dead on. But then this season, it just doesn't make any sense. There's times where, like I said, he's in the 18-yard box, even the 6-yard box, when he shouldn't even be there. When he should be helping Coughlin protect the midfield, and he's bombing too far forward. He's bombing forward when he's cluttering up the midfield. He's cluttering up the 18-yard box. When you try to see one of our wingers trying to make a run, and all of a sudden they almost bump into Aaron Ramsey for whatever reason. Why is he there? And where is the coaching staff? Where is Arsene Wenger telling him stop? It's been a real headache to watch him play game after game after game and continuously make the same mistakes game after game after game. To the point that he shouldn't play the CM position for the rest of the season, because if he does, we're screwed. And even when he plays a right wing position, you saw it in Tottenham. People were praising him in the Tottenham game. There was times where he was supposed to be on the right wing, and he was all the way on the left side of the field, almost right next to Alexis Sanchez. I remember at one point, Alexis Sanchez picks up his head and looks at Aaron Ramsey like, "What are you doing here?" I remember at one point in the game, Alexis Sanchez even flung his arm off to tell Aaron Ramsey, "Get the fuck out of here." And what did he do? He left Coughlin out on an island. El-Nani as well, and even Bellerin. I mean, Bellerin was having a tough time in that first half. And of course, he had a yellow card on top of that. And you leave your right back out on an island by yourself on a yellow card. It doesn't make any sense. If a player regresses that much, why is he still here? I don't think he's going to get any better. I don't think that light switch is going to go back on. I really truly believe he thinks he's a number 10. And honestly, that's where he should play, but I'm sorry, Mesut Ozil is 1,000 times the player he will ever be. And why are we giving him more money? That's another thing about Aaron Ramsey. Between after that 13 and 14 season, he just kind of like blew up. He got more endorsement deals, more fame, more money. Is that what caused everything? Is it too much pressure for him? Too much stress? And there was an article that same season, which to this day pisses me off. He did an article. It was in, I believe, April, maybe even May, right before the end of the season. He was the man of the hour. He was the best player on Arsenal that season. People were deeming him world class player, all this crap. And of course, the journalist asked him if Barcelona or Real Madrid came calling, would you go to those clubs? And he said, "Oh, those clubs are mouth-watering." And he said in the same article, "Well, I still have some things to do, some things to accomplish at Arsenal. But maybe in the future, if that's the way a player thinks, get him out of the club. He shouldn't be here. If his heart is not if his heart and his loyalty is not with Arsenal, if he's thinking of bigger and better things already, he shouldn't be here. Get him out." Because it's obvious something was lost over the last year and a half. And we cannot keep a player on the pitch that's going to continuously make mistakes like that. And we as Arsenal fans can't sit there and just say, "Well, this is his first goal that he scored in a month. All is forgiven." That's bullshit. So that's another play I'm sick and tired of at Arsenal Football Club. That's just taking up space, taking up money. I'm just kind of like sick of some of these players. Last couple I'm going to be talking about. This one, Per Mertesacker. I mean, again, I could pretty much kind of put him into that old category. Definitely a player that has been past it. Um, Again, a player that makes a ton of, after that World Cup ended, uh, you know, the biggest complaint on Per was always, he's too slow. He has no pace. Honestly, him and Arteta could do a foot race, and I think almost Per would probably beat him. I mean, that's how slow Arteta is. But that's always been his main complaint. Some of his attributes were his positioning, his awareness. But then where is that these last two seasons? Again, he gave an interview about 2 or 3 months after the World Cup ended. It was during an Arsenal season, and he flat out said it's tough to get up. It's tough to get up for games now when you're not a part of a national team anymore. I'm sorry. If I read that article, if I was the manager, I'd be like, the next transfer window, you're out of here. Because it's obvious that he has checked out. You've seen it in so many games this season, last season, where he just has brain fart after brain fart. I mean, in the Barcelona game, you could blame those 2 goals on him. You can blame a lot of goals that went in the season because of Per. But for some reason, Arsene Wenger doesn't want an upgrade. He doesn't want to get a better defender in to take his spot. People are trying to slate Gabriel. Oh, he's not ready. He's not good enough. He's not ready. How do you even know? He hasn't had a decent run of games since he's been here. But people know that he's not ready because he's not, I feel so sorry for Koscielny. He has made a name for himself. He has progressed every single season to the point that, in my opinion, he's the best defender in the Premier League. He's one of the best defenders in the world. He is world class. It's probably the last player that Arsenal has made world class. And he deserves it. He worked hard. But at the same time, just like with Mesut Ozil, by not giving him a world class striker or somewhere close to it, we're wasting Laurent Koscielny's talent by not putting an equal next to him. And it's a real shame. It's a real shame that this can't be identified. Now, it seemed like in the beginning of the season that Gabriel was going to get his shot, that he was going to play, and then all of a sudden he got that red card against Chelsea, which is bullshit. And for whatever reason, then Arsene Wenger decided to sit him down. I know he had an injury, during January and February, I believe. But then after that, all of a sudden he got sat down for some reason. You know, after the last Chelsea game, Per got a red card, straight red card for being the last defender and tripping up Diego Costa. I know people think that Diego Costa took a dive, but he didn't. If you really watch that replay, Per clipped him. He clipped him good enough that he would go down to the ground. And again, in the rule book, if you're the last defender, you cannot do that. And you get a straight red card. And that's exactly what he did. But what happens? 3 games later, Per's back on the pitch. Why did Gabriel not get the same treatment? Because Arsene Wenger and his loyalty and his faith in these players, he's just not good enough. How many goals over the span of his career are blamed on Per Mertesacker and his lack of pace? People try to say that he's great at positioning himself. Then why the fuck is he so far up the pitch? He's higher than Laurent Koscielny most of the time. Why? Because Laurent Koscielny needs to stay back with his pace to clean up Per's mistakes. He makes a lot of mistakes that people just do not, for whatever reason, want to acknowledge. And again, like I said, he's checked out. Ever since the World Cup, he's checked out. He's done. Right now, it just seems like it seems like he has one good game, and then he has 3 others that are just terrible. He's checked out. He's done. He after the World Cup, he probably feels that I have nothing more to prove. I'll stick around, collect some paychecks. Hopefully play a little bit here and there, but he's just checked out. Why would you want a player to continuously play for your club. Another thing about Per Mertesacker, how many top tier clubs in the world would he play for? None of them. He wouldn't play for Man City. He wouldn't play for Chelsea. Fuck, not even Man United would take him right now. In that disaster up there. Not even Liverpool would take him. Bayern Munich definitely wouldn't take him. Dortmund definitely wouldn't take him. Real Madrid and Barcelona, even Atletico Madrid or givens, they wouldn't even fucking take him. PSG wouldn't take him. None of the top clubs in the world would take Per Mertesacker, but for some reason he starts for us. It's the same with, all those years that Miguel Arteta was playing, starting. Matthew Flamini, same damn thing. This is some of the questions that you have to ask yourself. How many of these top tier clubs would Olivier Giroud be starting for? The Ox, Matthew Flamini, Arteta, Per, even Ramsey. I mean, how many of those clubs would they actually start for? Not many of them. Probably none of them. But they start for us because Arsene Wenger just likes to hang on and hang on and hang on to players for some damn reason. Like I said, he stopped being ruthless and stopped being a screamer years ago. And it goes right back to the same thing. He's a businessman, not a football manager anymore. Because a football manager would identify these things and get them out of the club, and they wouldn't play them on top of that. The standards seem so low at Arsenal and so high at other clubs. And again, you can't use the money factor as an excuse anymore. You can't. The last player I'm going to talk about is a tough one because I adopted him as my favorite player after Cesc Fabregas left. For whatever reason, I didn't adopt RVP like probably most people did. Because I like what RVP did on the pitch for us, but at the same time, I just didn't like him as a person. I don't know. There was something about RVP I just didn't like. He just seemed like, you could spot an asshole from a mile away, and that was RVP in my opinion. For whatever reason, I just didn't like him. So I adopted Theo Walcott as my favorite player after Cesc left. I loved his pace. I loved the fact that left backs would shit themselves every time he got onto the pitch. There was high hopes for Theo Walcott when he came to Arsenal. Once, Henry left, he took on the number 14. He said he wanted to be the next great number 14 at the club. He wanted to be the next great striker. All this stuff. And again, the same question. How has he progressed since he got here? And it's been 10 years now since Theo Walcott has been with the club. And, I heard that this week and I was kind of shocked. I was like, man, it's been 10 years already that he's been with the club. It's kind of amazing, honestly, that he's been with the club for that long. And again, what has he progressed at? What has he gotten better at? He's a decent finisher. I'll give him that. He's a decent crosser of the ball. He sucks at dribbling. He he doesn't have great intelligence either. And the main factor, which has been his MO, and for whatever reason he probably thinks he's entitled to something, is that he is just lazy. You'll see so many times of him just kind of trotting back instead of defending. The one time he actually tried to defend in his lifetime with an Arsenal shirt on, he ended up blowing out his ACL during against Spurs in the FA Cup tie. Again, it's another player that, it looked like the light switch finally came on. It looked like the light switch came on during that 12 and 13 season. He scored 20 goals, got 16 assists in all competitions. It looked like, okay, Theo's gonna, this is That was his breakout year. It's like this is gonna, the next year he's just gonna break out. This is what we've been waiting for from Theo Walcott, scoring 20 plus goals, getting 10 plus assists every single season. That's what we thought of Theo Walcott was gonna be. But then he gets injured twice. He had an abdominal injury, and then he blew out his ACL. And then he came back. We used kid gloves with him, and it seemed like he turned the page. You know, last game of the season, West Brom, he scores a hat trick. He was all over the place. He was running hard. He was running at opposing team, trying to get the ball back. Played in the FA Cup final, did great again. You saw you saw a different Theo Walcott, a Theo Walcott that had a ton of energy, who was running at defenders, who was running at players, who was making good runs, who was making himself dangerous, who was making center halves shit themselves because of all of his pace. This year starts, same thing. He was great in the beginning of the season. He was, well, maybe not great. I mean, he was good in the beginning of the season. He started banging in goals, and then he gets injured again. Another Arsenal player who is just littered with injuries lately. He comes back from injury, and all of a sudden, he goes back to his lazy ways. Maybe he thought coming back from injury he was entitled to the lead striker position. Olivier Giroud was, banging in some goals at that time. And Arsene Wenger put him back out on the wing. Maybe that pissed him off a little bit. Maybe he was revolting a little bit against Arsene Wenger for doing that. But at the same time, he let the team drown. That Manchester United game was a fucking joke. It was like we were playing with 10 men for 65 minutes. Kudos to Arsene Wenger for actually noticing it. But then, of course, he puts on Olivier Giroud anyway. Because we still couldn't do anything. And it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know what Theo thinks he's entitled to. He's making 140 grand a week. And he's playing like that. He's playing that lazy. He's just trotting around the field, doing nothing. Doesn't make any sense to me. And again, why would you want to keep a player like that at the club who's not going to give 100%? Of course, the Hull City game, I mean, him and Olivier Giroud were getting slated on the radio. I listened to the first half on Sirius XM. They had the affiliate for Talk Radio or Talk Sport in the UK, and they were just killing both of those guys throughout the entire game. And even on the Arsenal player, I listened to the second half on Arsenal player at work. They were getting murdered by the commentators. But then they score a couple goals. And then Theo Walcott says after the fucking game, I kind of miss playing on the wings. I kind of miss playing on the wing. What the what? What? A month ago you're saying you're a center forward. Now you're saying you miss playing on the wing. What the fuck are you? Are you a winner? Are you a forward? What are you? I don't think anybody knows. I think he's just a player with a ton of pace and that's it. Who can finish on occasion. And again, what has he progressed at? He's an awful dribbler. I mean, an awful dribbler. Especially with a guy with that much pace who can't make a couple moves and dribble around people or to kick the ball 5 yards or a few yards ahead of him and just run past the defender and pick up the ball again and start dribbling. He doesn't do that. I mean, he's an awful dribbler, to be honest with you. Why hasn't anybody worked with him over the last 10 years to make him a better dribbler, to make him control the ball better? to get that intelligence into his brain, to get that want and desire and that heart and desire into his body. Because he definitely isn't CR7. CR7 is probably him and Messi are probably the only players in the world that can just stand there and just stand there and just stand there and wait for your teammates to get the ball back. But you know what? On top of that, they score like 50 plus every single year. That's why they can just stand there and be lazy if they want to. And for whatever reason, Theo Walcott probably thinks he's entitled to something. Maybe because he's English. I don't know. I don't get it. Back in the 12 and 13 season, he used the fact that Cesc Fabregas and RVP left so he can get a big contract. He was getting 100 grand a season when he signed a new contract, and he almost put the club up for hostage because he knew that the club couldn't let another star player leave. And he kind of did that this past season when he got a new contract. 140 grand a week we're paying this guy. If I was Mesut Ozil, who's making 150, 160 grand a week, Alexis Sanchez, who's making 150, 160 grand a week, I would be like, hi, I need a pay raise. I need a big fucking pay raise because those guys offer 1,000 times more than what Theo Walcott can. They should at least be on 200 grand a week if you compare what Theo Walcott makes. Whether it's an English thing, I don't know. I don't live there. I don't get it. Maybe one of you can really explain it to me. I know there's a praise and a fascination because it is in England and they like to see their players do well. That's all well and good. But then when some of those players think they're entitled to something just because they are English and they play in England, that's just madness. So tell me what you guys think about the players. If do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Should we give one or two of these players an extra year? Um, would you send them out of the club? Who would you bring in? Give me your comments on that. The last topic I'm going to be talking about is the this player meeting that happened before. I thought it happened after the Hull City game, but apparently it happened before the Hull City game because I completely read it wrong. When I checked Twitter, the next day, um, the day after Hull City, I was reading all this stuff about a player meeting. I was like, wow, after the Hull City game, they must have really, after the game when they finally got back to the Emirates or something, they must have had a, like a little powwow, all of them, and talked about what was going on. But to come to find out, it was before the Hull City game. And if you were listening to the radio or if you were watching on TV, it didn't look like anything mattered then from that fucking meeting. Because if you have a meeting like that and you're supposed to, clear the air, as what they said, then every single one, every 10 players, now I'm not going to say 11 because Ospina's the goalkeeper and he's supposed to stay in goal, but all those 10 players that were on that pitch should have been coming out blazing. But it didn't seem like Theo Walcott did, Olivier Giroud. It didn't seem like the two bigger stars that we had out on the pitch were doing anything good. So what happened in this meeting? There's of course a lot of conspiracy theories of what went on, what was said. Of course, Theo Walcott let the cat out of the bag and talked about it, but he didn't say what was talked about in the meeting. It was just a clear the air to try to get back on track type of thing. I kind of wonder why this wasn't done sooner. Why did they wait until now to finally have a player meeting? Honestly, in my opinion, A player meeting should happen at least 2 or 3 times a year, just with the players alone. Why did they wait until now, when the sky is falling, to finally have a player meeting to hash out whatever they need to hash out? Why did they wait this long? What was said? Did they concede that there's no way in hell they're going to win Champions League? Which I hope was talked about. I hope someone brought it up in that meeting and said, look, we're not going to beat Barcelona. So let's focus on the league and let's focus on the FA Cup. We have 9 games left in the league. We need to win them all to even have a chance. We cannot drop a single point from here on out. Somebody threw a stat back in the 97-98 season when we won the double. We won our last 10 games of that season. Manchester United dropped enough points that we ended up winning the league. We had 79 points to end the season. If we win every single game that we have left, we'll end up with 79 points. But of course, we need a lot to happen with Leicester. They can drop points. But I hope to God, in that meeting, they would say, but it's a double-edged sword almost. If they talked about in the meeting, let's focus on the league and let's focus on the FA Cup and that's it. Fuck Champions League, unfortunately. But again, if Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez are sitting there and they're listening to this and they're hearing their own teammates say fuck Champions League, they're going to sit there and say, why the fuck are we here? Where's the confidence? Where's the faith? But at the same time, it's still Barcelona and it's at Camp Nou. That's a tough place to win, let alone make up 2 goals. Especially against that side. It's almost an impossible dream to win that game. So in reality, what you really do is just focus on the league and focus on the FA Cup, because that's the only things that we have a real chance at winning. And I hope in this meeting, some of these players start pointing fingers at themselves and say, you have to start stepping up. You have to start giving 100%. There's no dogging. And maybe they talked a lot about Arsene Wenger, which is another thing. They had no coaches, and the manager was not present at this thing. So what is that saying as well? That the players are finally holding themselves accountable, and the players maybe came together and says, you know what, we have to do this on our own. And we have to figure out some way, somehow, to win out. Because that's what they have to do. They have to win out on the Premier League and win out and to win the FA Cup. And like I said, if they even draw 1 game, it's over. It's definitely over. Mathematically, we can still come back and win it, but a lot has to happen. And our current form is dog shit. There's no proof of saying that we could actually do this. Not in their current form. People were all ecstatic and happy. I'm going to talk about that in my next episode, part 3, and talking about the fans, of how everybody, just because we beat Hull City 4-0, everything is right in the world again, which is a fucking joke. This past Saturday against Tottenham, we needed all 3 points. But we only got 1 point and we dug ourselves in a deeper hole, 8 points back from Leicester, 3 points back from Spurs. So I hope in this meeting, and it's kind of funny. Thomas Rosicky can't play. He's done for the rest of the season. Miguel Arteta is basically done for the rest of the season. Cech is out for the next 4 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks now, but you catch my drift. The only one that can actually play, that called that meeting, is Per Mertesacker, and chances might be that he might not be able to play. Arsene Wenger said he's good to go, but again, I mean, if he has a concussion, you want to protect the player. He has a gash above his eye. That's what took him out of the Hull City game. It's the only player that can play that called that meeting, and I mean I don't know. But hopefully from that meeting, they breathe new life into him. That some of these players get their head out of their asses and start playing football and start playing for each other, because that's what needs to happen. But like I said, comment on the players. Tell me what you think. Who would you keep? Who would you let go at the end of the season? Who do you think is good enough, not good enough? You know, what kind of upgrades? I think, at the end of the season, the priority should be a world class striker and a world class winner. I mean, that should be the priority for the summertime. And honestly, possibly even if we can grab a hold of one, a world class center half. We definitely need those positions to be filled, upgraded, to have a chance to win the league, to have a chance to even compete in Champions League. And I'll get into that maybe some episode, near the end of the season or at the end of the season, because there's a few names already out there swinging around. Kareem Benzema might be up for sale. There's a large rumor that Lewandowski is going to go to Real Madrid. So there's going to be some players available this summer, and Arsenal better be at the front of the line buying some of these players and upgrading these positions, because we definitely need them. We need to get the most out of Mesut Ozil. We need to get the most out of Alexis Sanchez. We need to prove to Cech that he didn't make a mistake by leaving Chelsea and picking us over PSG. Because look, PSG winning the league, going on to the quarterfinals again in Champions League. He passed on that. But again, tell me what you think. I'm going to end it here. My next video is going to be on the fans. And again, I have a lot to say about the fans and some of, just how diluted and how delusional some of these fans are that we have at Arsenal Football Club. And it's just a joke. Stuck in mediocrity. So that's going to be the next episode, and maybe look for that possibly tomorrow, hopefully. Um, I might make a part 4 of this, which is going to be some kind of positive out of all this crap. Hopefully, um, hopefully maybe I'll come out with that on Saturday. Of course, Sunday is the FA Cup tie against Watford, so maybe look for that. But again, tell me what you guys think, and I'll catch you later.